Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. The Supreme Court has struck down DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, and cleared the way for same-sex marriage to resume in the state of California. In two landmark decisions today, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of equality. The Defense of Marriage Act was ruled unconstitutional in a 5-4 ruling as a violation of the equal protection guaranteed under the Fifth Amendment. Essentially, the court ruled that DOMA discriminates against same-sex couples by denying them equal protection under the law. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote the majority opinion, which said, "The federal statute is invalid, for no legitimate purpose overcomes the purpose and effect to disparage and to injure those whom the state, by its marriage laws, sought to protect in personhood and dignity," end quote. In the Prop 8 case, the Supreme Court turned away the private sponsors of the anti-equality measure, saying they lacked standing to bring the case. The justices said that because the state of California refused to fight a federal court ruling that struck down Prop 8, private sponsors had no right to challenge the lower court's decision. Chief Justice John Roberts spoke for the majority and said, quote, "We have never before upheld the standing of a private party to defend the constitutionality of a state statute when state officials have chosen not to. We decline to do so for the first time here," end quote. As the rulings were announced, equality advocates celebrated outside the court. The decisions mark an historic step forward in our nation's recognition of same-sex couples. There will still be state-by-state battles, but as of today, the federal government may not discriminate against anyone because they marry the person they love. In screwed news, only hours after the Supreme Court struck down a vital section of the Voting Rights Act, Republican-led states immediately started working to knock voters off the voting rolls. Texas Governor Rick Perry promptly signed legislation enacting a voter ID law and new congressional district maps. These measures had previously been blocked by the Justice Department in 2012 as violations of the Voting Rights Act. In Mississippi, Secretary of State Delbert Hosemann announced that his state will implement their voter ID law, which was also blocked in 2012 under the VRA. North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia are also advancing legislation and redistricting measures, which had been barred before yesterday's ruling. Voting rights advocates point to the sheer number of states now enacting these measures as evidence of how important the Voting Rights Act was. When it was passed back in 1965, many Americans believed racial discrimination at the voting booth had finally come to an end. Thanks to our Supreme Court, looks like our nation must fight this battle all over again. In the best of the rest of the news, there's a new senator in Massachusetts. On Tuesday, Democratic Congressman Edward Markey defeated Republican newcomer Gabriel Gomez in a special election for the Senate seat vacated by now Secretary of State John Kerry. Representative Markey won with a 9-point lead over Gomez despite low voter turnout. After the results were announced, Gabriel Gomez cited campaign spending as the reason for his loss. However, Democrats held a strong voter registration advantage over Republicans in Massachusetts, and many people point to that as the real reason for the election outcome. In his victory speech, Congressman Markey said, "I am going to the U.S. Senate to build a bold and bright future filled with optimism and opportunity for every family in the state of Massachusetts and across our great country." Congratulations to Edward Markey. Republican lawmakers in the Lone Star State learned what the phrase "don't mess with Texas" is all about. As that state's Senate was about to vote on one of the nation's most restrictive abortion bills, State Senator Wendy Davis began a talking filibuster. She talked for about 11 hours before Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst managed to interrupt the filibuster shortly before the midnight voting deadline. The Republicans then tried to push for a vote on the 20-week abortion ban, but the crowd started a so-called people's filibuster and began chanting to disrupt the vote. By the time the vote occurred, it was minutes after the midnight deadline. Republicans tried to say that they had to dispute that they had violated that deadline, but by 3 a.m., Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst, a supporter of the abortion ban, told reporters that the legislation was not signed before midnight and was therefore dead. He blamed, quote, "an unruly mob using Occupy Wall Street tactics," unquote, for the bill's failure. It's likely that Governor Rick Perry and Republican lawmakers will try again. However, Texas Senator Wendy Davis and pro-choice advocates appear ready to block it once more. The Congressional Progressive Caucus has launched the Raise Up America campaign. They're starting a multi-city tour to highlight the scandal of low wages keeping millions of Americans in poverty. The campaign will be led by Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison, who will advocate for higher state and federal minimum wages, stronger collective bargaining rights, and fairer work requirements. When he announced the campaign, Representative Ellison was accompanied by 2 fast food strikers who are struggling to survive on $7.40 an hour. They told stories of being denied full-time work and being humiliated by their employers. Ellison declared, "As members of Congress dedicated to serving the people, we can't just stand by and watch people get mistreated this way." And finally, you can now own a piece of presidential history. For the right price, you could be the proud owner of items belonging to former White House intern Monica Lewinsky. The collection includes clothing, letters, and even a black negligee once owned by Lewinsky herself. Nate Sanders, whose auction house is selling the items, said, "This is, to my knowledge, the only collection of this nature to come to light. So far, the highest bid is $2,700, and the auction ends tomorrow night. Could all be yours, but fair warning, dry cleaning charges are not included." And that's the way it is today, Wednesday, June 26th, 2013. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.